Hi, my name is Claire, and I'm going to be doing an example of using this power mapping tool in order to do reparations of relationships. So for this example, we have our map on this dry erase board. You can see to the left are people most aligned with us, to the right are those opposed. On the top are powerful, and on the bottom is not powerful. I also have my dry erase markers. I have two colors, just in case. And I have a bunch of sticky notes in two different colors. I have pink and I have blue. For this example, I am going to be taking on the identity of Ann Perkins and doing this from her point of view. If you don't know Ann Perkins, she's in Parks and Rec as the person who begins the fight for the park. So in this scenario, we're going to take it in the middle of all the seasons when the state auditors first come to town, because that's a great time in the series of Parks and Rec. But we're going to pretend it's in the modern moment. And Ann Perkins has just gone to an anti-racism training. She's gotten all the information that she needs to know about why Black Lives Matter, what she's going to do about it. And she's joining the statewide campaign in the state of Indiana to defund the police. In particular, she wants both Pawnee to defund the police and, of course, fund Parks and Rec. And she also wants to support the statewide initiative to defund the police across the state. So here's our example. I've used pink notes for folks in the Parks Department and blue notes for everyone else around City Hall. So Anne has thought about it, and she's thought about her experience campaigning in the city government for the park next to her house instead of the pit, and all the people she's come into contact with, friends, acquaintances, people she barely knows but knows a little bit, and she has put together the tools for her power map. So the first person we're going to map is Ron Swanson. Ron is head of the Parks Department, and so he's got some amount of power. So we're going to put him up above the line, like he has some amount of decision making, especially when we talk about defunding the police to put the money into parks. Now, the problem is he's not like super leftist in any way. He's not like, he hasn't taken a position on Black Lives Matter, but he tends to like have a heart at the end of the day, and Leslie can, get to him. But he also is he's not for money in government. So we're going to put him sort of in the middle, because he maybe can move things. So we're going to put him there. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. Next up is Leslie, the assistant parks director. Now, Leslie is Anne's best friend. And Leslie, aside from her crush on Joe Biden, she tends to be like very Democratic centered, very like on top of a bunch of different things, and cares about people so much. So, we think Leslie is going to get on board with this and be pretty supportive, not 100%. She dated that cop that one time, and so she has like some sympathies for the police. But we think that, she really does care about Black lives. She is not as powerful as Ron as the assistant parks director, but she's pretty powerful because Ron listens to her. Other people really listen to her. She's a mover and shaker in City Hall. Continuing in the Parks Department, next up we have Tom Haberford. Now, Tom is into business interests, and if we know one thing, it's like the businesses always support the cops. So I kind of think Tom is over here, and he's far less powerful than either Leslie or Ron. So I'm going to put him below the line. I'm going to put him right there. Next up, Jerry Gergich. Jerry probably has a similar amount of power as Tom. They're both parks employees, but Jerry's a little less listened to by his coworkers. He's less in the pocket of businesses. We know he'll go on to be mayor someday, but at this point when we're doing this map, he's not there. So we're going to put him sort of here. April Ludgate is next. So April, I believe at this point, is Ron's assistant in the Parks Department. She, she doesn't care about a lot of things in many cases, but she also does care, and she also doesn't have a lot of power. We're going to put her like there. Seems about right. Donna Meagle. Donna's also in the Parks Department, the one Black employee in the park. Donna tends to have somewhat conservative in politics, but she does stand for Black folks. She has sort of a similar amount of power as Tom, but we think that she'll be over here. That's my guess, at least. Okay, that's the Parks Department. Now we're going to move on to other people. First up is our state auditor friends. So Chris Traeger. At this point, Anne isn't yet dating Chris, but you know, they're kind of hanging out. And he works for the state auditor. He has a heart of gold. He like gets so excited about whatever issue you take to him. He's going to be so supportive. And he's more powerful, especially on the statewide part of this, than Leslie is. But maybe not quite that powerful. Maybe kind of even to Ron. And the reason why he's not that powerful is he travels around with Ben Wyatt. Now, Ben, as we know, he like is the no of Chris's yes. But Ben does really care about people. And especially if Chris and Leslie, who he's got a crush on Leslie, if they both are supportive, like it seems like he could get there. So we're gonna put Ben here. He's maybe the most important person in my map, at least. All right, next up we have two Pawnee City Council members. The first one is Jeremy Jam. He doesn't seem to be very progressive and kind of like he could make some decisions on this, but he just seems to be in scandals all the time. And in the pocket of Sweetums, right? And same thing for Bill Dexter. He's the one who's really in the scandals, I think. Or maybe I have them backwards. I don't know. Either way, these two are sort of up here, powerful but opposed and not super helpful. Also up there is Bobby Newport. Now we know Bobby Newport, he's in charge of Sweetums, the biggest industry in town, and they're gonna have interest in keeping the police the same way that it is. So we're gonna put him as like very powerful, very far up here. Let's just stick him there. All right. Next up, we got Andy Dwyer, the shoe shiner, who, lived in Anne's pit for a while, like cares about people, heart of gold, but really no power whatsoever, and kind of all over the place. We're gonna put him right next down to April. I don't know which one of them will be to the left of the other. Neither of them really have a lot of power. So there we go. Next up, we've got Mark Brandanovich from the planning department, who hangs out with the parks department all the time, supportive of parks. He seems to be sort of moderate in his politics. We don't really have a really good sense of where he is. So I'm going to put him sort of in the middle. I think he's got more power than Donna and Tom, but less than Leslie. So we'll put him there. Okay, and last up, we're going to put two journalists. So we've got one person from corporations, and then we're going to put two journalists. We've got Perd Hapley from Have You Heard the Word with Perd, or whatever his show is called, a Black journalist in a mostly white town in Pawnee, Indiana. And he, doesn't tend to take a lot of positions, but raises a lot of questions. So we think that he could be on this side someplace. He has a pretty wide viewing. So if he got there, he could be somewhat powerful and listened to. So we're going to put him right in here. Not really sure where he's going to land on this because he sometimes is kind of, wishy-washy. But on the other hand, the other journalist is Joan Calamezzo, who's on the morning show and super conservative. She's not probably, I don't know if she's more powerful than the city council members, but probably right in that same pocket. And she tends to be on the right on everything and gives like lots of time to like the family foundations, anti-choice kind of people, etc. I don't think she's going to be on our side on this. Okay, so here's our map. Oh wait, the most important thing is we have to map ourselves. I usually wait till the end to do that, but here's Ann Perkins, whose point of view this is. And so Anne is all on board with this map. She's right there, but she doesn't have a lot of power. She is probably right down here with Andy and April, but maybe has more of a line to Leslie. So we'll put it right there. So here's our map. I'm gonna zoom it in so you can see it. And this will also be available in a photograph so you can study it a little bit more. And the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna draw some lines to show some of the connections, because once we've mapped this all out, we have a sense of like where people are. And the question is, from Anne's point of view, like where are the relationships to focus her energy on in order to cede power and support Black organizers in the state of Indiana trying to defund the police. So we're going to draw some lines from Anne, which is the most important one. So, you know, Anne's got a weird relationship with Andy. That's not super helpful. She's got a really, really tight relationship with Leslie. Like that's a really important one. The two of them like eat their caramel coffee whipped cream drinks together. I say eat because there's so much whipped cream. They're super close. And then she also, you know, she's got some amount of relationship with Chris that's maybe growing. Spoiler alert. And then Leslie and Ben have a close relationship, and Chris and Ben have a close relationship. You know, Anne doesn't really get along well with April. I don't know that she's close to any of these folks. Tom really likes Anne. So we'll do a little thing there, but I don't know that that's one directional. It's not super helpful, especially since Tom doesn't have that much power. If she were to neutralize somebody, it would probably be somebody up here. You know, I think Tom has this close relationship with Joan Calamezzo. So if Anne wanted to try and get Tom to do something, he could try to get Joan to be more neutral. And then Joan also has really close tie to Bobby Newport. Maybe they get married or something. I don't know. There's some like relationship there too. I can't remember what it is. So it seems like the most important thing that Anne could do, if I were Anne, is focus on working with Leslie and Chris to get Ben involved, and that the three of them work really hard on moving things with the state. The other thing that's important here is Leslie and Ron have a really close tie. So Leslie could move Ron to be more supportive, and that seems key. So it seems like that's like the pocket she wants to focus on, of like moving the Parks Department to be really on board in this campaign and really supportive of defunding the police, not just in Pawnee, but in the state. And then also getting the state auditors to be on board with taking money out of the police to put into parks, both in Pawnee and also in other places in the state. If Anne feels like there's more to do, maybe she starts trying to work with Tom and getting Tom to work on a campaign to get Joan Calamezzo and Bobby Newport involved. I think Donna and Tom also have a good relationship. So if she went that way, she might try to get Donna to help support that. That seems possible. Okay, I'm going to show you the map one more time here. And that's it. So this is our example. You can go try this yourself in real life with relationships you really have. You can think about it with your local government, but you also can think about it with more relationships that are like Bobby Newport, that are corporate and that have some level of influence in the problem that you're thinking about. So some of Anne's next steps, just to review, are she's going to meet with Leslie and try and get Leslie to help her. She's going to try to get Leslie and Ron to get the Parks Department really on board. Once she does that, then she's going to try to cede that power over to the Black Lives Matter Indiana chapter by introducing them and getting the Parks Department to really talk directly to those organizers and work directly with what they need. She's also going to work with Leslie and Chris to try and move Ben and get some of the state auditors on board. Same thing, ceding the power of that relationship as she moves forward. And then at that point, she might work with Donna and Tom to get Tom to try to move Joan Calamezzo, and for her to figure out like what's the right thing to do there. That gets really squirrely and complicated, and like how does that all work? But you know, it seems like there's some possibility there too. Okay, there's our example. Good luck with your power mapping. Thanks so much.